It was an extraordinary day in California. Thousands of people from all walks of life marched throughout California. They united to support education. 2 demonstrations were held in San Francisco. State of Events' Justin Mendoza reports live from campus on the massive day of action.
Hi, Mariah. Students, faculty, and supporters of all levels of education came together on what is now known as the Day of Action. They are taking action because of budget cuts, which have affected everyone from kindergarten to the university level. Rising tuition, faculty layoffs, and a class reduction of classes supported this movement. It was a day of action where protesters expressed their frustration with the decreased quality of education in California. Students and faculty picketed their way on 19th and Holloway for almost 3 hours. As protesters chanted, drivers would honk their support. However, protesters blocked off an intersection, causing a halt in traffic for about 15 minutes. Schools from all across California, including SF State, have been facing budget cuts. One college student is disappointed how all levels of education are being affected.
Within the elementary system and the high school system, people are not having proper access, teachers are getting laid off, classes are being cut, and education should be a right, not a privilege.
One supporter says she is concerned of where the money is going.
Education isn't being given the funding that it truly deserves. When you think about it, this is the future of our entire generation. This is the future of our nation because we're entrusting it in the hands of the new generation. And instead, California is willing to be number 1 in prison spending, but number 48 in education spending, and that's sorry.
SF State students are joining hundreds, maybe even thousands of students and faculty here at City Hall, protesting for their educational rights. One kindergarten teacher says he is witnessing many negative effects in the classrooms.
We're just seeing a ratcheting up of larger and larger class sizes, and it has a dramatic impact on our ability to spend time with each individual student.
Another supporter hopes that the protest is only the beginning.
I'm hoping that people further see the need to organize, that mobilizations aren't enough, but that what happens in between the mobilizations are even more important.
The protest at City Hall lasted over 2 hours. In spite of the thousands of demonstrators that marched at SF State and City Hall, it was a peaceful protest. Not a single supporter, student, or faculty was arrested by the police. There were also huge protests for the Day of Action in Berkeley. And though the majority of protests were focused on the goal at hand, State of Events reporter Kanya Goldman explains police had riot squads out in full force just in case.
And in Berkeley, more than 100 students took to the streets last week. They were angry about the latest tuition hikes and the cuts in education funding. Parents, students, and teachers joined together to march in the Day of Action protest. A statewide Day of Action in Berkeley brought out over 100 picketers to protest the budget signed by Governor Schwarzenegger that cut allocations to UCs by over $637 million.
SOS! Save our schools! We're fighting for budget cuts in California!
What do you think when you see all these people out here?
It's amazing how many people care!
Students and faculty from Sacramento, San Francisco, and Berkeley have been mobilizing in an attempt to save public education.
We have a just education, but we don't have a just access to that education. We're celebrating the possibility to have that just access to the education. Not just for white students, not just for rich students, not just even for students of color, but for all students in a just and equitable way. Are we going to win that fight? Yes, of course we're going to win that fight. That's what we're here for.
With the state's support dwindling, UC divisions and departments have had the pressures of raising corporate or possibly private endorsements, which equals privatization, and that can ultimately limit academic freedom. At least 2 Berkeley protesters were arrested for vandalizing university property, and over 100 protesters were arrested for the part they played in blocking the evening commute on 880 last Thursday. Some protesters did get out of hand and arrests were made, but there was plenty of protesters on a mission. Students also took time out of classes to send messages to Sacramento through letters. More protests are planned for the coming weeks. I'm Kanya Goldman for State of Events.
Thanks, Kanya. As the Day of Action paved the way for protesters across the state and the Bay Area, those at the state capitol took a different approach.
Thousands were on hand to educate the state on the issues of budget cuts.
State of Events' Angela Greenwood reports on how people united in an effort to fight for the future of California.
Students, teachers, family, and legislators joined forces Thursday in Sacramento to fight for public education. For the first time ever in California, people from pre-K to PhD came together to speak out against further cuts in funding, marking March 4th as a day that will go down in history. In the past year, students have experienced a drastic decline in the quality and affordability of their education, and they feel as though they have suffered enough. They came today to offer state legislators some of their own advice on how education can be restored.
The bonuses, we need to stop cutting teachers and start maybe cutting politicians' salaries. And at some point, you know, you have to bite the bullet and you have to say, hey, this is education. This is worth a sacrifice.
I think they should actually cut budgets on anything else besides education.
President of the California Faculty Association, Lillian Tays, believes the state has let the public down.
The people out here today and the people who are at demonstrations up and down the state are tired of waiting for leadership. So today, the people are taking the lead, and we invite them along.
Thousands of students, faculty, and staff came out today to participate in what promises to be the biggest statewide action in the history of California. But today is only the beginning. On March 22nd, protesters plan to hold another rally here at the state capitol to secure the future of California. In Sacramento, Angela Greenwood, State of Events.